for our student athletes.
Okay, well, thank you. It's good to see everyone. Hope everyone had a great summer. Before we get started and talk about Arkansas State, I'd first like to start off and say thank you for Commissioner Gill for his leadership and for his vision. I believe this is his 5th media day, and everyone asked me, what's the difference? What is it about the Sun Belt? And I will tell you this, building a program from ground zero is probably one of the most difficult things to do in the Sun Belt Conference. And I want you to think back, he's been the commissioner now going on year 5. How did we used to refer to the Sun Belt? It was called the Fun Belt. And everything was about outscoring your opponent 52 to 51, 51 to 48. And then when you look at the building of this conference, the Sun Belt and the dynamics have completely changed. Troy, who won our conference championship, gave up 17 points per game. When you think about this conference, you look at the competitive side of it from top to bottom. You look at the additions last year, the 4 institutions. It's not arguably, it's factually the best group of 5 conference in America. And then when you're trying to build a program, that makes it even that much more challenging. I joke with Travis Llewellyn coming in here. I'd also like to say thank you for the entire Sunbelt staff. There's so many things that go behind the scenes of the putting together of this event. It's the spring meetings in Destin. And when spring meetings were wrapped up, I like to study human behavior and people. And I just kind of sat in the corner and I watched their staff break down all the things from the events and how they work together and all that. And it was really impressive. So I want to say thank you from our end of things, because what you do for our conference and all the behind the scene things, we do everything the way the SEC does it. We're in the SEC footprint. We do everything first class in this conference. So I'd like to say thank you. Personally, this is my 14th media day, and you kind of develop a time clock in your mind that it's football season. But we had a little exciting and different perspective. Usually in the Jones family, we'll do something on the last weekend that kind of symbolizes the end of summer and on to football. Well, I had to travel back to Knoxville this weekend, and our son Alex, who's on our staff, got married. So first son, I have 3 boys, so to be there for his wedding and all that, it was pretty neat. We had over 40 college coaches there, so it was also a great clinic going on while the wedding was going on, so that was great. But for us at Arkansas State, I think we've had a really good and productive off season. We've had a really good winter. We've had a very good spring, and then we've had a very good summer. And, I kind of sit back, and it's exciting with media days, but having done this a while, you look back and everybody's filled with optimism. Everybody's excited about the upcoming season. Everybody's working hard. But really, at the end of the day, it's the team and the programs that can manage the natural adversities that a long football season brings about are going to be the ones that really like where they're at in December. And because right now, I really like where our football team is. We're still evolving and building our identity. These 2 individuals here have really helped in the building of our identity and really our team chemistry, our connection, our connectivity. Our culture is different. It's night and day different. But Justin Parks, who's a safety for us from Birmingham, Alabama, and Malik Stryker, who's an outside linebacker from Brampton, Ontario, right close to Toronto. These 2 individuals have been there from day one with us. And when you take over a football program, this is our 4th time doing it, and there's different starting points. And I never really believed in the analogy coaches would say, well, really year 1 is year 0. Year 2 is year 1. Well, I experienced it in the building of this program. I've been very transparent. Year 1 was just lining up and really fielding a football team. We had to go through the portal. We had to fulfill our allotment of scholarships to be able to field a team. And then we made a decision, as a coach, when you come in, you can look to get a quick fix through the portal and do that every single year, or you can kind of build it methodically. And we made a decision that we were going to build it methodically, and we needed to improve the influx of young talent in our program. We've been able to stack 2 top recruiting classes back to back together. Now it's how we grow and develop that, and then we are able to supplement through the portal. This year, we'll have 37 new players in our program, so we're excited about that, but we still had 20-plus high school recruits, and we're excited about that. But these individuals are 3 for 3. They're really good people, they're really good students, and they're really good football players. And I love them and think the world of them. And you know you're getting better as a football program in your culture. There's a lot of individuals that could have been sitting up here at Media Day, and everyone says, well, Coach, you picked 2 defensive players. And what I've learned is you take the people who fully deserve to represent your institution in the Sun Belt Conference. And I just felt that these 2 individuals are great ambassadors for Arkansas State, for college football in the Sun Belt. But really it's about us continuing to create the right mindset, the leadership, the connection, and the trust. We have more distributed leadership than we've ever had. The accountability, the expectations, everything is in place. We're a completely different football program than we were a year ago. And a lot of times, usually in year 3, you can start to see the culture kick in. You can start to see basically the quality of players. Our 3 previous stops were 30-9 in year 3. Now, does that mean that we're going to have success with year 3 at Arkansas State? It doesn't guarantee us anything, but we know how the program is set up, and we know how far we've come. So I think the biggest thing for us is, can we play winning football at all 9 position groups? And everything is about teaching them how to win. What does it take to play winning football? I talked about year 1, but also talking about year 2 is we were now starting to become competitive. And what I mean by that is I've never been through a year like we experienced last year. In a 12-game season, we had the lead going into the 4th quarter 8 times. And, we weren't able to finish, and we were very close. And we've researched everything. We even took the video, and we watched the entirety of the 4th quarters. And, I think a lot of it was quality depth. We had a lot of players playing too many plays, not just on offense and defense, but also in special teams. And then how do you win the 4th quarter? You win the 4th quarter by being able to run the football and stop the run. And in the 4th quarter, we weren't able to do that. But I think, success starts to reveal itself in many ways. And this past semester, we had a 3.2 GPA, which is the highest in the program. We're graduating our players. We set records in community service. And like I said, our leadership is the best that it's been. In terms of staffing, I think you win with continuity and consistency. We've been able to keep our staff intact. We only lost 1 individual, Jake Schoonover. He went to Ole Miss as their special teams coordinator, but we were able to add Josh Conklin, who's a veteran, who's been a head coach, who's coached in the SEC as well. So we're excited about what he brings to the table. I'll hit this question off right away. Who's going to be our starting quarterback? Well, I'm excited about our quarterback situation because we have 3 individuals that are very capable, and they're competing every day. We have the transfer in J.T. Stroud, who came in. He started games at the University of Tennessee. He was a full-time starter at Colorado, had an unfortunate season-ending injury. And so he's brought a whole nother dynamic of leadership, expectation to our program. And then Jackson Daly's a young man out of Iowa who was highly recruited that was able to play last year, but we were also able to redshirt him, but he gained valuable repetitions. Same thing, true competitor, great character, 4.0 student, and then a true freshman that enrolled early from North Carolina, and Jalen Rayner. We're really excited about him. So, again, we're excited of where we're going. We're responsible for what we create on a daily basis. And before I open it up for questions, I'd also like to say thank you to the media for being here today. What a great turnout. And you guys are the ones that are responsible for really creating the excitement, the energy around Arkansas State, around college football, and also around the Sun Belt Conference. So thank you, and I see a lot of good friends, so it's great to see a lot of good friends and being here. So I'll open it up to any questions y'all may have.
We'll now take questions for Coach Jones and the student athletes. For those in the room, if you have a question, please raise your hand and wait for a microphone to come to you. Since we're going out live, please state your name and your media affiliation before asking your question. And for those of you on Zoom, please type your question into the chat and I'll read them aloud. And I have a quick question on Zoom already for our student athletes. This is both for Malik and for Justin. You have a lot of new faces on this roster. What have you tried to do to gel this group together?
Well, the standard is the standard, and the biggest thing is to lead by example. What we want done in the program and what Coach wants done in the program has to be seamless. The visions have to align, and coaches set a standard, and we're just, putting the standard into play, putting the standard into practice every day. So with the new players that have come in, I think they've done a great job of adhering to that standard day in and day out.
It's really been easy for us to enforce the rules with the young guys. They come in eager, hungry, ready to work every single day. That's one thing, like as leaders, that's one thing you can appreciate is you don't have to work too hard by getting them up or try to get them to come do extra work. They're willing to do that. They actually texting us and asking us leaders, what can we do? They come and ask the coaches, hey, what can I do? Can I get on this special team? Like, you just wasn't having that 2 years ago, but now that we have that, it's just a blessing and it's just amazing.
Kevin Foote, Acadiana Advocate. Coach, you talked about running the ball and stopping the run in the fourth quarter. What did you see in the spring that makes you think that y'all will be more effective running the ball and depending on that more this season?
Yeah, well, we've always made a commitment to running the football. And, we always do what's called the team run period. The defense knows we're running the football. Offense knows we're running the football. It's 11 on 11, and we have to be able to do that. We went back. We really tried to get back to fundamentals, details, promote toughness in everything that you do. I think that's the other thing is you got to promote toughness in your program day to day. We went from one team run session to actually two. We did two different team run situations, and it makes everybody better. The receivers got to block. The defensive backs got to have block destruction and get off the block. You got to be solid in your run fits. But I think the other thing is we've really invested in the recruiting process of our offensive line. We completely have changed the look up front. We're much bigger. It's led by our center, Jacob Bear, who is a transfer from Lamar. We're really excited about him. Jalen Cunningham is a transfer from Ole Miss. He's about 365 pounds. And then Hamilton Hall is a left tackle from Ole Miss as well. So I think we've been able to also add some quality players. And we made a commitment in the offensive line to recruit high school players, but that's a developmental position. And a lot of times it takes 2 to 3 years for them to grow and develop. So that's why we needed to find quality players in the portal, and we were able to do that. And I think it's just an overall mindset and mentality as well. And I think, when you get older veteran players, I think that lends itself to, you look at the preseason all-conference players, look at their ages. Most of them are 4th or 5th or 6th-year players, and there's something to be said about maturity. I'm going to need these individuals because we were the 3rd youngest team in college football last year, and this year we only have 12 seniors still on our roster, so leadership will be at a premium.
Coach, Stephen Godfrey, Washington Post. You had a lot of options coming out of Alabama. Can you go back and talk about the transparency that you had to have with Arkansas State and in communicating, hey, this is going to be a long-term rebuild. This is going to be something that isn't going to be a quick fix?
Yes. I enjoyed my time at Alabama. A lot of great friends. Loved working with Coach Saban. Matter of fact, I was back there 2 weeks ago and we sat out in his patio and got caught up. And I love my job and had many of opportunities, but I wanted to go somewhere where you could make a difference, and I wanted to build something in kind of our own vision. And, our administration at the time had since turned over, but they were very transparent. And they told me there's no quick fix. It's going to be 4 to 5 years. and you're going to have to methodically do it, and this is where we're at in all aspects. And they were transparent, and that's kind of a challenge. But I also wanted to go to a place where I knew you could win. I knew that they had won in the past. Everything when you get older is about where you want your kids to go to school. I still have a 16-year-old, so Jonesboro is a great community. We have great facilities, as we all know. So if we can get a prospective student athlete to campus, we got an opportunity. But I was well aware, but I wanted to take that challenge because I felt I needed to go back to being uncomfortable. I love building programs. So to build a culture, a mindset, a mentality, and I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years has been humbling. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been hard, but I think it makes you focus as a leader of staying the course. You know, we tell our players this, and Coach Summerall spoke about it either. We use a term called trust the process. And we live in a result-oriented world. Everybody wants instant results. Well, those things don't happen, so you got to trust the process. You got to do the things on a daily basis to get the outcomes you want. So it focuses you to make sure your staff, you know, we have a lot of, as I always say, first-time coaches or administrators or support staff. So you have to be the one that brings the experience, that kind of is level-headed, that sits back and says, okay, I'm going to rely on my past experiences. This is how we're going to do it. This is the plan. We're not going to deviate. You got to trust the process. And I love that part of it. And these two individuals have been instrumental in doing that, along with our other guys. But that was kind of the challenges that I knew faced us.
Coach Jones, Jeremy Harper with HowRaiser.com and Sunbelt Podcast. You were talking about improvements made on the offensive line. Last year, the defense seemed to couldn't get off the field in the fourth quarter. That was a big problem, 3 and outs. The offensive line surely is going to be something that's going to be a contributor this year to reducing that. What else is going to help reduce those 3 and outs in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think to go back, and that's a good point on the defensive line, we had tried to address it with some older players in the portal too, with Micah Bland, Nate Marty, who's come in as well, and then some young players that we've developed that maybe you quite not have heard yet with Keyron Crawford and all those individuals. So it's going to be important. Obviously, there's so many dynamics, and it's been programmatic issues. You know, you talked about getting off the field. Well, we did not do a good job in third down on third and short to medium on defense, and did not do a particularly good job on offense as well in that situational football type aspect. So I think the more that we can stress that in training camp, the more we can practice trying to make everything extremely competitive in everything that we do. You know, one of the things we did, I spoke about at the end of the season, is our program, our team needed to learn how to win. Learning how to win is something that is extremely hard, and you can't just, there's not a formula for it. So what we went back in this offseason is we went back to what we've done everywhere else we've been. We divided our team into 10 segments, and our players drafted their teams. And they had an NFL-style draft. These two were captains, and they competed in 3 elements. They competed in academics, they competed socially, and they competed in football in the weight room. And they would tally their totals up, but the team that accumulated the least amount of points for that week had something extra that they had to do. But it also was a tryout to see who our leaders would be, because within those 10 groups, if you can't lead 10, you can't lead 130. And so that's why we had a 3.2 GPA. I'll give you an example. If they wrote a paper on a player, a professor, or a coach, they got an extra 2 points. Jackson's Daly's team in the last week was in 3rd place, and he himself wrote 40 individual papers on people in our program, and his team came back and won. And even though you say, okay, how does that translate on the football field? I think if you were to walk into our building, you're going to feel the connection and the connectivity, and you're going to be like, ooh, this culture feels pretty good. Now, how can we translate that onto the field in winning football games? but usually that's a byproduct of what's coming next.
Manuel Pepe's Sunbelt Conference. This is for both the gentlemen at the table. You guys open up on the road with Oklahoma. You have Memphis the week after that. Just talk about what those games do as preparing you guys for obviously a very tough conference and certainly tough divisions within the Sunbelt as well.
We respect every single one of our opponents, and we understand that Oklahoma is going to be a good opponent. But the biggest thing that I think we do is we focus on, ourselves and what we need to do to make sure that we're successful on a day in and day out basis. Our coaches do an extremely good job of making sure that we're prepared. So we understand that we're going to do what needs to be done, and we're willing to do the work.
Yeah, going along with what Malik said, just preparing, our coach prepares very well for any opponent. We believe Oklahoma is a good opponent, but we preparing, they prepare us every day. And like they say, you can't go into a test without knowing what you're doing, without studying for it. So we study any opponent, any opponent every day.
Have a Zoom question. Coach, this is for you and also for Malik and Justin, since you look across the line every day at these guys. You have a lot of unproven players in your offensive skill positions. What did you see from that group in the spring and so far this summer?
Well, we needed to rebuild our wide receiver room. That was a point of emphasis in the offseason. We needed to build our quality in there, but also our culture in there. And we've been able to do that. And Jeff Foreman is an individual who will be a senior this year that has had one of the best off seasons of anyone in our program. We're excited about his growth and development. Kind of an unusual circumstance. We welcome back an individual in Corey Rucker. He was a great player for us. He did everything right. He went to another school in the SEC and called us and wanted to come back. And he did everything right when he was here. I love him and felt that he would be a great addition to our football team, and coming back, and our players welcomed him back. So we have him back. We went to the portal with some individuals at the receiver position that I think can help us, and Courtney Jackson, who is a transfer from Syracuse. You have Reagan Ely. Kamari Thompson's a late addition to that group. So I feel pretty good that we rebuilt that room. Adam Jones is an individual who's had one of the best off seasons like Jeff Foreman. He's verticaled over 40. He's run 22 miles an hour, so he's done a good job that way. And I have a hard time saying that name because that's my son, but it is what it is, so I'll just bring him up. I make his mom happy. By the way, it's our 31st anniversary today, so happy anniversary, Barb. But we've totally rebuilt that room, and we're excited about that. And then we signed 6 high school players there as well. And then also, Brian Sneed at running back has had a very good offseason, along with Jaquez Cross and Mike Sharp and a lot of these individuals at the running back spot. And then we also took a transfer from UT Martin and Zach Wallace, who's originally from Arkansas, who's about 230 pounds. So he brings another dynamic in terms of a skill position set at the running back position.
Well, I got to say, I'm impressed most about the offense is just the connection that they all have. And, in practice, it's really hard to put them away. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a great leader in the quarterback position. You got players that just, when they get down, they, never really down. They can snap back and score any second. Then they even help us defensive-wise. We asked the quarterback, hey, what did you see right here? Did you know what coverage was in? Did you see our shield? You know what I'm saying? So that's the most impressive thing I've seen. It's just the connection that they have together.
I would say their competitive nature and their ability to respond throughout, anytime we're in practice, whatever we're doing. These guys, they're very, very competitive.
And that's a great question, because that's one of the things also in our fourth quarter struggles was also the ability to create explosive plays. So that's a very good question, because that's kind of been our focus as well.
Any other questions for Coach Jones and our student athletes? Here we go.
Jackson Hebner from The Breeze. I was just kind of curious, Coach, you mentioned a little bit of comparisons between the Sun Belt and the SEC, and you spent a lot of time in that conference. But just in terms of the competitiveness, going from a conference, that's kind of famous for having some of the biggest names in the sport to sort of this conference that's sort of establishing a name for itself as a very competitive conference. Like, what are some of the comparisons there?
Well, I think there's a lot of comparisons, and obviously it's all relative. But when you look at it, there's more than one or two dominant teams, programs in our conference. If you just look at the flags from left to right, week in and week out is a challenge in and of itself. You get some conferences where maybe they have one or two premier football teams. In our conference, there's a lot of premier football teams, and I think the facts speak for themselves. And I think the weekly rigors of your conference scheduling, I think that's what's even more challenging when you're building a team and you're building a program, the week in and week out challenges that it takes to play in this conference. But also then you look at our non-conference scheduling. You know, some conferences you can go buy your way to 3-1, 4-0. You know, in this conference, you're not doing that. It is what it is. So you have to earn everything that you get. And then, you know, your depth comes into play. But, you know, relatively speaking, there's a lot of similarities. And I think this is one of the most competitive conferences in the country. You know, I think the overall general public is starting to finally really understand what the Sun Belt Conference is and how competitive it is. And then when you go back and you add the additions of the 4 institutions that we did last year, week in and week out, it's the programs that can provide the leadership, stay healthy throughout the course. It gets back to that thing I spoke about early on with the natural adversities of a season. It's never more evident than in the SEC or the Sun Belt.
Any other questions for Coach Jones and our student athletes? If not, thank you, gentlemen. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
We will continue in just a couple of minutes.